An interpersonal strength that I have is that I'm a really good listener. I think this will help me in future classrooms, and it already has in the classrooms I've worked in, because it really allows me to understand each individual child for who they are as much as possible. To understand the things that they like to do, what type of learner they are, how they react to certain situations, and I think all of these aspects are really important as a teacher because they allow you to change your curriculum to fit the needs of your students, which I think is really important. I want to be able to see each child I have as who they really are so that I can play off of their strengths and bring them into the classroom as much as possible. And for me, working in a diverse environment, this is even more important because I might have students that don't know English very well, and I might have to understand what they like to do in their free time so that I can incorporate those aspects into the classroom and really connect with them in a new way. An interpersonal weakness I have is that I've always been really shy, and it's sometimes hard for me to speak out in groups of people and really get my opinion heard. But I think that I've learned from that a lot in college, and it's helped me in the classroom to be able to understand those students who are shy and don't really want to talk, because I've been there before and I can really relate to them. And so I think as a teacher that helps me to understand those students who may do really good work but not really know how to approach social situations or talk out in class. And I think that I could really help them.
So after reading the article, High School Honors Classes, Elitist or Not by Molly Walsh, we decided to have a discussion. And this is Michaela, my sister, and her boyfriend, Shab, here to join me. So the first question we have is, are honors classes helpful or harmful to student learning? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, personally, I think that honors classes can be really helpful to student learning. Personally, I took pretty much all honors classes from a pretty young age, from the time I was in 4th grade on. And I really enjoyed them, and I thought that they were more challenging than any normal courses that I took. And so in that respect, I think it's really helpful. I think that personally I would have been really bored in a normal classroom if it wasn't advanced placement.
You didn't feel singled out, that you were separated from the rest of the floor, held to a higher state standard, or like there was more pressure on?
No, not really.
Bob, can you talk a little bit louder? Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
I kind of had a similar experience as Michaela. Both of us went through honors classes pretty much our whole lives, and I think that I really felt challenged by them. But at the same time, I've known kids who, I guess, had a hard time in them because of how much work they are, and some kids aren't ready for that. And I do think that those classes tend to not be very diverse, which is an issue because it kind of creates segregation. And I know that that was an issue in my classes throughout all of my schooling. Did you see that in your classes?
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of diversity for the most part. I think that especially depends on where the school is in general, because I took classes in schools that in general weren't very diverse, and then I also took courses in schools that were much more diverse, and so therefore the highly capable classes were more diverse. So I think a lot of it is just where like where the school is, how diverse it is in general. Um,
Well, it's hard to compare all honors classes in general, just because they're all so different. The second question is, do you think tracking has the potential to reinforce stereotypes and prejudices?
so personally, I feel that it's kind of a tricky question. Um, I'm not entirely sure how it reinforces stereotypes and prejudices. I think it depends on how it's done. Like, personally, I believe that you should be able to choose what courses you're going to be placed into. That if you want to be in an honors course, you should be able to. But if you're talking about students that are going to test into certain courses, then I could see how possibly it would like reinforce stereotypes and prejudices, like racial and class kind of stereotypes and prejudices, where in general you would see, you know, more wealthy, affluent, probably white males and females, as opposed to any other group of people. But if you have it where students decide for themselves what course they're going to go into, whether they want to be in advanced placement or not, then I don't think you're going to see that same stereotype or prejudices reinforced, at least not as much, because then anyone who wants to can do it. It's not necessarily about whether you test a certain way or not.
I don't know, because I feel like if somebody is more capable, they're also more prone to being lazy. So if it becomes an option, they may take an easier course, just because they can get an easier A and still get through high school. So they may need that little push to go.
That's a good point. I think, like, when it comes to testing, it's difficult because I don't really think that one test should determine if you're intelligent enough to go into a course, because everyone tests differently anyway. So I agree with you that it should be the student's own option to do an honors class if they decide to. But I also think that it does tend to reinforce tracking because students who are poor or facing poverty have a lot to deal with, and so they're just kind of trying to get through school in general most of the time. So they may not have, the capability or want to go above and beyond and go into that honors class because they're just trying to, finish school because they have so much else to do in their home lives that's affecting that. So I do think that it does reinforce tracking, but I don't think that there's really a good way to get around that, because I think the elimination of honors classes would make it so that there are too many different types of learners in one environment, which makes it difficult to teach to every student.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think if you got rid of tracking altogether, you're most likely still going to see these same stereotypes and prejudices within schools. You're going to see the same groups of people that do well and those that don't. And I think that tracking or honors classes or advanced placement, that's not the problem. That's not. And so getting rid of them isn't the solution.
Because I've seen students who are just as smart as I am who don't go into honors classes, and then they don't feel like they're challenged enough, so they kind of become slackers, or they don't do their work because they just don't feel like it has any merit for them.
And I definitely agree with what Ethan Carr said about the honors courses that he took, how he took that geometry course and he was pressured into doing people's homework and helping them. That's a really big problem when you get all the same, like when you don't have honors courses or tracking whatsoever, because you get essentially kids that are being tutors, that are being teachers, and that's not fair to that student.
Yeah, I've had that same experience myself, being, a younger student in a classroom full of a lot of different age groups, because you're kind of, I don't know, stereotyped as the smart one that is almost like the teacher. And so, yeah, it provides a different learning environment for those students, which isn't necessarily conducive to their learning.
I had a lot of experience where I was like a tutor in the class, but it's because I switched schools a lot and I never was placed in the right class. So I would say that better placement would be a better thing in schools, but I kind of think it would be better to have teachers meet with students and for teachers pick which students, because it always seems like there's that one teacher that works well with students. And if it was a decision process before, you pick your class, I don't know, seems like it's all based on curriculum right now, whereas who's teaching the curriculum could be just as important.
Well, that's why it makes it hard to have any one decision for all schools, because they're all so different, and each teacher is different, each class is different. So, I mean, maybe not having honors classes at all would work for this particular school, but I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to cut honors classes out from all schools.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you're talking about it reinforcing stereotypes and prejudices, and that ethnic minorities have a lower rate of being in higher achieving classes. I think that if you are going to remove honors courses completely, like I said, you're still going to see that same trend. You'll probably see the same groups of people just simply getting lower grades. And when in that respect, it seems like it's more about the teacher, the environment, social aspect. And I don't think that having an honors course or tracking or not having it really plays that big of an effect. I think, like we just spoke about, you being a younger student in a class, you're then being stereotyped as the smart one or as the nerd in the class. I mean, I think that can reinforce the stereotypes and prejudices just as much.
Yeah, I think maybe even more, because the students that are, impoverished or facing difficulties in those classes kind of become dubbed the stupid ones or the less smart ones in the classroom, and they don't really have the ability to rise up and see what they can accomplish, because there are so many different types of learners that it would be hard for any teacher to address just one student or help them out. I think it's just hard when there are so many different types of learners in different situations that you would have without honors classes to be able to really make an impact on any one student. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.